the state of the stock. There is a repair piece in there. You can see the grain matches up pretty well. I think once I get a little bit of stain on it, you'll still be able to see it, but you won't be able to see it very well. And it doesn't matter anyway. I mean, at least the big crack is gone and everything. This is top of the gun. It's at the bottom of the fore end. The barrel is going to be sticking out. Nobody's going to be looking at this anyway. But if they did, they'll be able to see that it's repaired if they look closely enough. Now, this whole thing has been sanded down to 150 grit, I think. Haven't done anything with this yet. I'm waiting on a tool. I got a plug cutter coming, and I'm gonna cut a plug out of walnut, and I'll cut a round, make this thing round again, and drive it in there. Some glue. I'll fix up sand it up a little bit better. I don't know what the hell this thing even is. It's not centered. I think someone tried to put a sling swivel in and ripped it out, and I don't know what this is even. They jammed something in there. Anyway, so what we're doing now is we're going to sand down to 220, and then we're going to sand down to 320, I guess. And then I'll, but what I do in between, see right now this is fairly smooth. This side is for sure. Yeah, see the wood feels smooth, but what you do in between sandings, this is water, it's a cotton rag, here's the stock, and get it nice and wet. Okay, now that wood is wet, it's soaking in, and it's swelling up the fibers that are in the wood. All the fibers in the wood are now flat right now. They were like this, but then when you sand it, everything kind of gets compacted down. And you take the heat gun. Don't get it too hot. Just let it and dry it. Alright. Now, I don't think you'll be able to see it. But, oh yeah, you can feel it. Right here especially. It's like hairy now. It's like whiskers sticking up. Like when you haven't shaved for a day. Especially when you get anywhere near any end grain. But all along it, really. Depending on if you just change direction, you can feel it. The swollen fibers, they get saturated with they get plumped up, and when you dry them, they go back to their natural position. And now, I'll do this to the whole stock. This is called raising the grain. I'll raise the grain, and then I'll sand down 220 grit. Okay? And then I'll do it again. I'll wipe everything down. I'll wipe it down with a rag and get all the sawdust out of the grains, out of the grain of the wood. And I'll raise the grain again, and I'll go to 320, and then that's probably as fine as I'm going to go on this, because I'm going to sand in the finish anyway. So, and I think I'm going to go for, like a satin finish on this. I'm not going to go super high gloss. You could go, you could sand all the way to 600, whatever you can get these days, and then go into like pumice stone on a rag and polish it up, and go all the way down to rotten stone. Make it a high polish, and then do like one more coat on top, and it'll look like glass. But I don't want that. That looks cheesy, in my opinion. I want something that looks good but be rugged. So I'll do this, and then when I get to 320, I'll raise the granite again, and I'll rub the whole thing down with quadruple aught steel wool. And steel wool is a triangular shaped wire, and it'll actually has like a cutting edge. It has 3 cutting edges, and so I'll raise the grain twice and rub the whole stock down with that, and that'll kind of bring up a sheen, believe it or not. It'll burnish the wood, and then I'll seal it. At that point, I'll dilute what I'm going to use to actually coat this thing down, probably by half, with some kind of a thinner, probably odorless mineral spirits. Depends on what I use though. But I'll make it very, very thin, and I'll keep this wood wet with it. I mean wet, like so you can see it on the surface. For 15 or 20 minutes, I'll just keep applying it, keep it looking wet, because it'll soak in. I get all these areas, like the end grain, really well. All the inletting, all the way inside, like all the way into where the magazine well is and everything. All that'll be soaking wet. And I'll keep it that way for, 15-20 minutes, so that it's really soaked into the wood. And then I'll wipe the whole thing down, and I'll hang it up for a day or two. And that'll completely fill the surface of the wood down to a depth, down to a quarter of an inch in to the wood, or further, depending on what kind of wood you use. But this will probably be hey, could you please stop wrecking my chair over there, you freaking animal? That'll harden the wood, and it'll protect all of it inside and out from moisture incursion. It'll keep it from swelling and stuff during humidity. You don't want the wood to change shape. I think this channel is pretty good. It's not, I didn't free float it, but it doesn't seem to touch the barrel. And you don't want this thing swelling up when it gets humid out, or changing directions on you. Being out here and all of a sudden when it gets humid, it goes like this and starts touching the barrel and throws off accuracy. That's what you're trying to not have happen. So everything will be sealed, and then after that gets cured, then I'll start sanding in finish, at full strength. So I'll get it on a piece of wet dry sandpaper, and I'll actually rub it into the wood with the sandpaper, the finish that I'm going to use. I'll let it sit on there for about 5-10 minutes, and then wipe across it like this, and it'll fill all the slurry from the wood and the finish. Go like this across the grain instead of being pulled out of the grain. If you just wipe across it, it'll tend to stay in the grain. It'll fill it, so that you have a surface that, instead of having all these little irregularities, it'll be built up to a level surface, and that'll make it nice and smooth. It'll make it look good. It'll make it easier to keep clean. And do that 4 or 5, depending on the wood, up to 10-15 times, depending on the wood, I suppose. But if you do your preparation right, you won't have to worry about doing that very much. And you can see that it looks like it's got a rough surface now here, and that's just from me raising the grain. But when I get down to this, when I finish this up, when I'm done all that prep work, this will be perfectly smooth, and it won't have this rough finish, this rough feel to it, I should say. Now that's what you do. That's how you really refinish a piece of wood. If you really want to know how to make a gun stock look good, you don't go online and look at a bunch of videos of a bunch of YouTube, wannabes out there refinishing their gun stocks, and they buy their old military rifles or whatever. You want to know how to refinish wood and really make it look good? You go to YouTube. You can learn a lot on YouTube, but if you want to get a good finish, you watch YouTube videos by people that are building their own guitars. You want to learn how to do a French polish or all sorts of other things, and then you modify it to work in the outdoors. You have to use different finishes. If I thought this was going to be like a serious, you know, something I was going to carry outside in the rain and everything, what I would do is I would seal the surface with bar top. I would dilute it first and then you know, seal it like that, but then I would do the whole surface with bar top and then sand it down to level, and that would completely fill the grain and the thing would be rock solid. But I'm not worried about that. I don't keep my guns out in the freaking gutter. I keep them in a safe. So, and anyway, this thing's not worth it. I mean, so what was this gun made in 1981? It's just an old 22. Probably worked pretty well, but I'm not even sure why I'm going to bother to rechecker this stuff. But because I mean, originally it's just sort of like, I don't think it's a laser cut, but it's barely checkered. But I'll get my D-Bart tools or Dembart tools out, and I'll make little diamonds out of everything. It'll look real nice when I'm done. But you do that after the finish is done. You cut all the finish out while you're doing that, and then you reseal it. Yep. Alright, that's all you need to know, because it's probably twice what you really need to know. Or I would bet that you turned this off about 10 minutes ago anyway, because I talked too much. Alright, cheerio.